You can't be serious about that, can you?
I'm very serious about it.
I'll give him credit for that because there's a lot of
the bravery for running away when he got tired.
No, the bravery.
Sorry.
Go.
Sorry. From round one, running away, jumping up and down, falling down on the floor. Yeah.
$1 million.
He did not, but go ahead.
For a clown show. For a freaking clown show. Jake Paul embarrassed himself, embarrassed the sport, and embarrassed everyone that calls himself a...
Stephen A. Smith confronted Jake Paul during a live interview following Jake's knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Smith questioned why Jake chose to face a fighter of such an elite level so early in his career, calling it a risky and dangerous decision. Jake responded with confidence, stating that he still has everything in place, including the best team money can buy and strong training behind him. He made it clear that this loss does not end his boxing journey and believes it is only a setback, not the finish. End his boxing journey and believes it is only a setback, not the finish.
A few more fights. I'm not taking him on in my next bout, but a couple more years of experience with the team I got. I'm surrounded by the best team in the world possible that money can afford, so I'm getting exponentially.
After Jake Paul's fight with Anthony Joshua, Logan Paul addressed the reaction from fans and critics, saying much of the backlash came from haters who would criticize regardless of the outcome. He explained that competing at this level naturally brings heavy scrutiny, and this fight was no exception. Logan pointed out that no one realistically expected Jake to beat a two-time Olympian, but his confidence and determination stood out. Even after suffering a broken jaw, Jake stayed positive, joking and recording content from the hospital, showing resilience and passion for the sport. Logan said this mindset of pushing through fear and adversity is what fuels Jake's success, and despite the loss, the fight was ultimately a positive experience. Joking and recording content from the hospital, showing resilience and passion for the sport. Logan said this mindset of pushing through fear.
Haters gonna hate. It's just the name of the game, you know. When you're operating at the high level that my brother and I are, the haters come with it. I mean, statistically speaking, part-timer, I think the narrative's dead. I've been showing up every single Monday for the past month and a half. I've wrestled in 4 out of the 5 times I was there. I won every single match. So like, everyone who's yapping can now shut their trap because the narrative's dead.
I mean, you brought the receipts. I think that the proof stands for itself. And you mentioned your brother. Jake went 6 rounds on Friday night with Anthony Joshua. I know how proud you are of him. You were in the hospital with him afterwards. You called him an absolute warrior and said on your Instagram that his broken jaw won't break his spirit. How did you think, and what did you think of how the fight went down?
So, from strictly a logical point of view, I actually think it went down exactly as it was supposed to. I'm not sure anyone really thought that Jake was going to beat Anthony Joshua, but you have to understand, being his brother and in his close circle, he has this conviction that makes you believe, and he has this ability to defy reality and morph it into his vision of how it'll transpire that makes you think he'll win. However, like this was my opinion, this was a logical conclusion to the fight. The 2-time Olympian broke the influencer boxer's jaw. Like, okay, you know, we could have wrote it in a story and it would have made sense. That said, I think he did amazing. I'm incredibly proud of him. I think it was a net positive. I think the world can see now how tough Jake Paul is.
Shared his perspective on Jake Paul's performance against Anthony Joshua, explaining that those claiming Jake was simply running failed to understand the full situation. From the start, it was clear Jake had very little chance of winning against a fighter of Joshua's caliber, so survival became the main objective. Hearn stated that the real test was how long Jake could last in the ring, and he exceeded expectations by surviving all 6 rounds. Many believed he would not last more than a few, yet he showed resilience against a top-tier heavyweight. While Jake was not competitive in the traditional sense, lasting 6 rounds highlight. Shared his perspective on Jake Paul's performance against Anthony Joshua, explaining that those claiming Jake was simply running failed to understand the full situation. From the start, it was clear Jake had very little chance of winning again.
Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job.
and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never ever going to win the fight, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, because I knew Jake can move a bit and he'd be moving off the back foot and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would, the way that he was strong in the clinch. He wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, it's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster. But there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk, and he's just a...
Smith went on to say that Jake Paul cannot rely on his YouTuber background as an excuse when facing a true elite fighter like Anthony Joshua. According to Smith, if Jake still sees himself primarily as a YouTuber, then he should not be stepping into the ring with top-level boxers. He emphasized that high-stakes fights require full professional commitment and an understanding of the sport's demands, not dependence on fame or cross. Smith went on to say that Jake Paul cannot rely on his YouTuber background as an excuse when
he takes the sport very seriously.
Thank you. So let me ask you, that's the question I have, because great kid, great businessman, by the way, amazing. And I know how he does all this, the character and the persona. We keep saying that he doesn't want to be a boxer. He's not a boxer, but then
Jake Paul is a boxer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point.
Exactly. He's a boxer.
He can fight. I respect it. So go in there against fighters. You should be climbing the ladder towards those other fighters and taking the sport seriously to the point where you're fighting.
Chisora partially refused to give Jake Paul respect following his fight with Anthony Joshua, questioning the idea that simply entering the ring is an act of bravery. He dismissed arguments from people like Chris Eubank Jr., who claimed Jake deserved credit for lasting 6 rounds. Chisora pointed out that Jake spent much of the fight avoiding exchanges, moving away, falling, and throwing very few punches. He stated that bravery is not about showing up for money or enduring pain, but about taking risks for something greater. While Jake committed to the event, Chisora argued that surviving 6 rounds alone does not earn respect for skill or courage. Chisora partially refused to give Jake Paul respect following his fight with Anthony Joshua.
He is supposed to it's not supposed to look competitive. He's not supposed to hit you. He's not supposed to go more than 3 rounds. But at the same time, you need to know how to control the pressure. I think AJ's demeanor in the build-up was someone who was like, you know what? Everyone's saying these things, but this is how I see it. Yeah, I rate him. He can box a bit. He did say in an interview with Steve Bunce that like when he was talking certain things, there's a part of me that wants to punch him in his face, but I'm just gonna chill. And I feel like that's how he handled the immense pressure.
The last time we saw AJ fuming like this, like when he actually tried to do something, was with Dylan. So we should not judge him when he says something like this, because when he don't say nothing, we say, oh, why is he not saying anything back? Yeah. And when he says something...
that respect should not be associated with Jake Paul in this situation, arguing that the fight was always about money rather than true competition. Inside the ring, several weaknesses were exposed, particularly Jake's repeated grabbing and holding, which made him appear fearful rather than calm. The analyst explained that this reaction was understandable because Anthony Joshua was not past his prime, but an active and dangerous heavyweight. As the fight continued and Joshua's punches came closer, Jake became more defensive and focused on survival. According to the analyst, This was not bravery, but self-preservation, and a massive payday does not automatically earn respect in boxing. That respect should not be associated with Jake Paul in this situation, arguing that the fight was always about money rather than true competition.
Things were revealed inside the ring, you know, all the grabbing of the leg and stuff like that. That shouldn't have been. You know, that almost looked like, it reminded me of Troy. You guys remember Troy when Orlando Bloom's character grabbed his brother's leg, you know? You know what I mean? It looked like he was desperately scared, you know? But I think he should have been desperately scared because AJ was coming to hurt him. This wasn't a Mike Tyson fight. He wasn't 58 years old. This dude is 36. And Anthony Joshua, like he said, because I've heard AJ say stuff like that. Hey, I'm going to F you up. He said the same thing to Helenius, because he thought Helenius was looking at him crazy. And it's like, what do you know, why are you looking at me like that? Right? And Helenius like, huh? You know, and what happened to Helenius? He got knocked out, and needless to say, he tested positive for something. But yeah, so if you hear AJ say, hey, I'm gonna F you up, oh yeah, that's what he means. And I think Jake Paul knew it. You know what I mean? He avoided a lot of big shots at the beginning of that fight, you know? But then as AJ started getting closer and those punches started getting, you know, more in range of hitting him, the grabbing happened a lot, you know, more, you know? He started gripping.
And Sergio Mora placed most of the blame on Jake Paul while analyzing Anthony Joshua's 6th-round knockout win. They argued that Jake did not just lose the fight, but embarrassed himself and the sport by displaying a lack of true boxing fundamentals. Mora explained that real fighters are trained to handle fatigue, pain, and pressure, while Jake learned how to throw punches but not how to fight when in danger. They stated that Joshua clearly controlled the fight and could have ended it much earlier if he wanted to. Both analysts described the bout as disappointing for fans and harmful to boxing's image. And Sergio Mora placed most of the blame on Jake Paul while analyzing Anthony Joshua's 6th-round knockout win. They argued that Jake did not just lose the fight.
I've been telling you this for years. The thing about boxers is we train to be tired. We train to be hurt. We train to roll with punches. We train for a lot of things that this YouTube Disney star has been nobody. Never learned the trait. He never learned how to fight. He learned how to throw some punches. He learned how to box. And I told you it's because Jake Paul had the resources. He can have a head start in this career like you did in life, and you can make it out. But the thing is, when a fighter really wants to hurt another non-fighter, he can do it, and he can do it a lot easier and a lot faster. Anthony Joshua played with his food, and I'm going to tell you right now, he played with his food. I don't think he should have went to the 6th round, maybe the 4th at latest, because Jake Paul was running. He wasn't boxing. He was running, and every time he had a chance to try to tackle Anthony Joshua in fear, he was on his knees. It looked like he was praying. Jake Paul spent more times on his knees than you did in college praying for a girlfriend. It was embarrassing, Chris Mannix. It was embarrassing. And all the people that tuned in to Netflix and everyone else, just like the Mike Tyson fiasco that happened a couple years ago, we feel disgusted for having to watch that.
I'm not going to defend the fight. It was a bad fight. It was actually worse.
You're not going to put him on. You're not going to put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated again?
No, because we put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated for very different reasons than boxing. It was a power issue, as you
strongly criticized the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight, calling it a bad matchup that crossed a dangerous line. He said that while some crossover fights can be taken lightly, this one carried serious risks. As a boxing promoter, Shalom explained that he regularly sees how dangerous the sport can be from a medical standpoint and how quickly things can go wrong. He warned that these fights are treated as entertainment and quick money opportunities until someone suffers severe damage. According to him, this kind of bout makes a mockery of boxing and damages the sport's reputation. especially when a mediocre fighter jumps weight divisions to face a two-time world champion. Strongly criticized the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight, calling it a bad matchup that crossed
on the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua circumstance. I mean, a lot of people talking about the discredit it does to boxing. I don't put it in the category of boxing. I put it in the category of entertainment, and Anthony Joshua being introduced to America as a media star. What's your overall view of what it does or doesn't do for boxing? Jake Paul being licensed in a fight that many people think that he shouldn't have been licensed to fight, in a commission that often does that. As a promoter, do you think it's a bad look for boxing, or are you thinking it doesn't really matter? It's not really what boxing's about.
I usually and have said in the past that things can be things, you know, you got to take it for what they are. But in this occasion, I do think it is a freak show, if I'm honest. I also think it's dangerous. I'm sat here as a boxing promoter, and I see what goes on with the medicals before and after fights, and how dangerous the sport is. And I saw Callum Simpson. The fight should have been stopped way before it was, but was in trouble on Saturday night. It's all a bit of fun, and it's all a money grab until someone gets seriously hurt, seriously damaged, and then the whole sport comes into disrepute. For me, it makes a mockery of the sport of boxing. For me, no one in the industry wants to talk badly about it because everyone's lined, the pockets are getting lined, and when you look at that, and kids will look at that, and fans will look at that, and sponsors will look at that and think that is boxing. As I say, we're one punch away from something serious, and yeah, it's
Ben, on the flip side of that argument, mate, you will tell me that you knew that Chris Eubank wasn't right to go into that fight.
No, but let's be completely honest, right? Whatever you want to say about that fight, these are two experienced professional fighters. Chris Eubank Jr. has been in fights previously.
Kinsey criticized the level of competition Jake Paul has been facing, calling it very poor. He suggested that fighters from his own gym, many of whom are not elite professionals, could perform just as well or better in these crossover fights. McKenzie mocked the idea of being labeled a world champion after short bouts against weak opponents, implying the title holds little value. He added that these events are more about easy money than real risk, and expressed frustration with athletes from other sports entering boxing, stressing that boxing is an elite discipline that should not be. Kinsey criticized the level of competition Jake Paul has been facing, calling it very poor. He suggested that fighters from his own gym, many of whom are not elite professionals, could perform just
a lot of my time and a lot of my patience to train these guys. Now, they don't know a right hook from a meat hook. They don't know a jab, you know, from a proper boxing jab to a jab in the arm with an injection. They haven't learnt the basic fundamentals. Nobody's taught them to keep their hands up and their chin down. Nobody's taught them how to jab properly. Like I say, these guys were just swinging shots on a wing and a prayer, and it was quite painful to watch. I don't know who coaches these guys. I don't know. Maybe they're MMA, maybe they're kickboxers, maybe they're you know, professionals in their chosen field, but they're not being trained by boxing coaches. That's clear. What I would do, you'd have to strip them down and start from square one. And I mean, I've got a lot of guys in my gym, and a lot of these guys probably would do better if they entered this Misfits competition. I'd have guys from my gym calling themselves world champion, because at the end of the 6 rounds, Mora was crowned and still heavyweight world Misfits champion. Well, if that's the level of opposition, I might even head a few of my guys into that, see if they can't nick a few quid. They're not going to get hurt. It's, you know, what surprises me about all of these crossover organisations that want to, you know, you've got footballers that want to be boxers, you've got MMA that want to be boxers, you've got boxers that want to be boxers, you've got table tennis, you've got cricketers, you've got, name any sport you want, rugby, you've got
frustration with athletes from other sports entering boxing, stressing that boxing is an elite discipline that should not be. Frustration with athletes from other sports entering boxing, stressing that boxing is an elite discipline